Telecameras 3 and 4 working. Activate radio contact with the outside.
Love, wisdom, abundant life. Live a life filled with meaning, purpose, and a sense of accomplishment.
Can you hear me?
Welcome to the Teachings of Enoch. I'm your host, James Allen. Listen every week at this time on KKVV AM 1060 Las Vegas. You can listen online at kkvv.com, on your smartphone using the TuneIn radio app, or listen anytime at teachingsofenoch.com. You can contact me, 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com. Let's get started with today's message. Welcome to today's show. I'm James Allen, and my guest is Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. We'll be talking about attitudes towards sexuality in early Jewish and Christian literature. Bill has written several books on this topic, including Making Sense of Sex. Bill, thank you very much for appearing on the program today.
Thank you.
Bill, shed some light for us in the Old Testament book of Genesis. What does the creation story tell us about human sexuality in the Jewish and early Christian tradition, specifically the seduction of Eve and humanity's downfall at that point in Genesis?
Okay, let me go back to Genesis 1. It's very clear that human beings are created and they are something good, and their being male and female is also part of the creation and something good. This is really quite fundamental because it means that sexuality in itself is something that God has created, and therefore nothing that people should feel ashamed of. In fact, something they should value like all other aspects of being human. Of course, what we do with our sexuality has got a lot to do with whether we're acting rightly or wrongly. You mention Genesis 3, really, where you talk about the seduction of Eve. That's very interesting because in the Hebrew of the Old Testament, in that story, there's nothing about seduction. There's temptation, there's trickery. Eve says, the serpent tricked me and I ate. It's only in the Greek translation of the Hebrew that you've got a word that can also mean seduction. The serpent deceived or seduced me, and that was an interpretation that came through really quite a bit later, and isn't really what was intended in the original narrative. But that has got a lot of flow on. Because you do have writers like Paul writing to the Corinthians using the story of Adam and Eve as a kind of symbol. He writes to the Corinthians and says, I don't want you to be seduced the way Eve was. Now, seduced is a metaphor there, but in the 2nd century, in the early part of Christianity, that moves on to actually the sin was a sexual sin. And then you get to developments which say, well, you see, sex is the beginning of sin. Then, of course, you are in real problems because you're contradicting the creation story. You get the development of Gnosticism, which really is a form of religion that says, well, you need to be saved from your body. Salvation is to get your soul out of this terrible physical body, which is an evil thing. They went even further and said because this evil body was created by an evil God, not the true God. Now, when you go back to Genesis and you go back to starting point and the beginning of things, you don't have that negative approach. You have a positive approach. And I think that's also what informs the teaching of Jesus. It's what informs the teaching of Paul as well, who saw sex as something positive, but something which you can use negatively.
You know, as we look at the result of the fall and the temptation that took place there, and both Adam and Eve gave into that. What the curses that happened from the disobedience of Adam and Eve, what were some of the implications as it related to our sexuality?
It's very interesting that the only things that refer directly to what you might call sexual in the response of God to Adam and Eve and the serpent is in the words that he spoke to Eve, according to the story. And there you've got a reflection of the way these very early stories functioned. When women give birth, there is pain. Why is that so? In the ancient world, they explained these things through ancient stories, and explaining way back why women have pain in pregnancy and giving birth. That was linked to the story of Adam and Eve and to Eve's fall. And it's only in the words to Eve that you have anything that relates to sexuality. Two things are said to her. One is that she will have pain in being pregnant and in giving birth. And the other is that she will keep going back to her husband. She will have desire for her husband. What it does do is says that, according to that ancient view, pain in childbirth was something that God introduced, and the result of it is that women will have pain in childbirth and they will have the desire for their husband.
I'm talking with Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. We're talking about attitudes towards sexuality in early Jewish and Christian literature. William has written several books on this topic, including Making Sense of Sex. I'm James Allen. You're listening to the teachings of Enoch. We'll be back right after this.
I bet you women would like to know what men are really thinking. The truth, the honest truth of what men are really thinking. Because I could tell you. Would you like to know? All right, I'll tell you. Nothing. We're not thinking anything. We're just walking around, looking around. This is the only natural inclination of man, to just kind of check stuff out. We like women, we want women, but that's pretty much as far as we've thought. That's why we're honking car horns, yelling from construction sites. These are the best ideas we've had so far. Honking the car horn amazes me. This has got to be just the last living brain cell in this guy's skull that comes up with this idea. I don't understand. It's so awful. She's on the street. He's in the car. Beep, beep. I think I made my point. What is she supposed to do? Kick off the heel, start running after the car? Grab onto the bumper? Car comes to a stop. It's a good thing you honked. I had no idea how you felt.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I can shoot a partridge with a single cartridge.
I can get a sparrow with a bow and arrow.
I can live on bread and cheese.
And only on that?
Yes.
So can a rat.
Any note you can reach, I can go higher.
I can sing anything higher than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
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 No, you can't.
Anything you can buy, I can buy cheaper. I can buy anything cheaper than you.
50 cents?
40 cents.
30 cents.
20 cents.
You can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can say, I can say softer.
I can say anything softer than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I can drink my liquor faster than a flicker.
I can drink it quicker and get even sicker.
I can open any safe.
Without getting caught?
Sure.
That's what I thought, you crook.
Any note you can hold, I can hold longer.
I can hold any note longer than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No,
Yes,
you
I
can't.
can wear, I can wear better. In what you wear, I'd look better than you.
In my coat?
In your vest.
In my shoes?
In your hat.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can say, I can say faster.
I can say anything faster than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
I can.
Yes, I can.
I can.
Yes, I can.
I can.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I can jump a hurdle.
I can wear a girdle.
I can knit a sweater.
I can fill it better.
I can do most anything.
Can you make a pie?
No.
Neither can I.
Any notes you can sing, I can sing sweeter.
I can sing anything sweeter than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
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 No, you can't.
I'm talking with Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. We're discussing attitudes towards sexuality in early Jewish and Christian literature. Bill has written several books on this topic, including Making Sense of Sex. I'm James Allen. This is the Teachings of Enoch. Bill, tell us about the sons of Noah that we find in Genesis. Kind of a very interesting account, a very interesting story there. And then that story is elaborated even more in some extra biblical literature, the Book of Watchers. Can you tell us about this a little bit?
Well, there's lots of interesting things there. One of the things about the sons of Noah was that one of them saw his father, who was drunk, and saw him naked and gets blamed for that. That's Ham, and his son Canaan is therefore cursed. One of the most interesting, and you've referred to it, is in the collection of writings called First Enoch, which has got 5 parts to it, and the first part of it is called the Book of the Watchers. And according to that, and that's an elaboration, or at least a parallel version of the story that you've got in Genesis 6, the angels, some of the angels looked down at human beings and saw women and thought they were very attractive, and so they decided to have sexual intercourse with them, and they produced, as a result of that, giants. And the giants were a catastrophe for Earth. They ate up everything, and they then started eating themselves, eating each other. They, in fact, ended up destroying each other. The development of this myth seems to be related to the chaos created by Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE, and his generals who succeeded him when he died young, and they, with their armies, fought against each other and created enormous devastation. It goes on to say that when the giants actually died, out of their corpses came spirits in the world, in the ancient world, and so out of the giants' corpses came these evil spirits, which are the cause for illness and the cause for wrong and evil and sin. So it's kind of a parallel explanation of how did bad things come into the world. Well, they came into the world because angels had sex with women. What's very interesting about that is that you don't find that story, which is a story of sexual immorality, crossing boundaries that shouldn't have been crossed, you don't find it used to address issues of sexual behavior. It's used to explain how come things have gone wrong in the world.
Well, Bill, in this case, going back to what we were just talking about in the Book of the Watchers, the listeners of that day, so they wouldn't really take this, and the hearers of this message, they wouldn't take this so much as behavior or way to live behavior, but rather to look and see, okay, this is why this is taking place in the world, more of a world view rather than a behavior. Is that what you're suggesting here?
Yes, that it would be it's kind of an ancient world science. How come things are the way they are? Well, let me tell you a story, and so they told you a story.
I'm talking with Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. We are discussing attitudes towards sexuality in early Jewish and Christian literature. Bill has written several books on this topic, including Making Sense of Sex. I'm James Allen. You're listening to the teachings of Enoch. We'll be back after this.
We men know, no matter how poorly we behave, it seems we will somehow end up with women anyway. Look around this room. Look at all the men you see with lovely women. Do you think these are special men? Gifted men? One-of-a-kind men? They're the same jerks and idiots that I'm talking about. They're doing just fine. Men as an organization are getting more women than any other group working anywhere in the world today. Wherever women are, we have men looking into the situation right now. We explored the earth looking for women. Even went to the moon just to see if there was any women there. That's why we brought that little car. Why would you bring a car unless there's some chance of going on a date?
She hangs up the phone and she sits there all alone. No, he's not coming home again tonight. Can it really be true? All the work he has to do, you know, somehow it doesn't seem right. She knows the feelings are fading away, but nothing is said when there's nothing to say. Life in the garden was never this way. Can we ever be Adam again? He parks his car where the local taverns are, and he carries on his search for something more. What harm could it do? Just a little lie or two, and we'll go on as always before. Home lady mumbles of traffic and rain. She smiles at him as she covers her pain. We had so much, now so little remains. Can we ever be Adam again? Each day that passes is just like before. No one confesses what their feelings are. They say that's life and you can't expect much more. We can never be Adam again. They never knew that love could be made new, and the good things of life don't have to end. The last Adam came to give love a name and a way to be Adam again. A way to be Adam again.
Talking with Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. We are discussing attitudes towards sexuality in early Jewish and Christian literature. Bill has written several books on this topic, including Making Sense of Sex. I'm James Allen. Bill, talk a little bit about polygamy, a discussion from time to time that comes up. How has that changed, the idea of polygamy changed in the early Jewish and Christian writings, and the attitude today where it's pretty much totally taboo and forbidden?
Yeah, well, of course, the Old Testament, the Genesis stories assume polygamy. You might have more than one wife. You would also have slaves if you were well off, and the male would have sexual access not only to the wives but also to the slaves. This was a widespread understanding, and it took some time before that was challenged. We see it in the stories of the patriarchs. It's just understood. That's what you did. You can say it was a way of solving things as well. If you have problems with one wife, well, you needn't put her away. You just get another one and she moves down. In polygamous relationships, we've got this reflected in some texts, for instance, in Samson's parents and also in Samuel's parents. You had disputes between women over sexual access to their husband. You've got it with Rachel and Leah as well. Interesting conflicts. Now, what happened as the Jewish society became more, had more contact with wider society, particularly in the Greco-Roman world, the Greco-Roman world did not approve of polygyny or polygamy. I say polygyny because it's actually about having many wives. It's not about having many marriages. It's not really about having many husbands. It's having many wives. It was seen as primitive, disrespectful, and so you have a growth from the 3rd, 2nd century BCE onwards, a tendency for some Jews to say, well, now look, we really should be having just one wife. We shouldn't have more than one. And arguments you find in some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, for instance, that why should you have only one wife? Why should there be only two of you? Well, the animals went into the ark 2 by 2. You have arguments like that. But you also have the text in Genesis, the two became one flesh, which wasn't necessarily excluding polygyny, but it was taken that way, and it's used that way later. The two, not three, the two become one.
My guest today has been Bill Loader. He's Professor Emeritus of New Testament at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia. Bill is the author of Making Sense of Sex, Early Attitudes Towards Sexuality in Early Jewish and Christian Literature.
What's going on? What are they stopping for?
Love, wisdom, abundant life. That's my hope for you. You've been listening to the Teachings of Enoch. I'm James Allen, your host. You can contact me 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com. You can listen to this program every week at the same time on KKVV AM 1060 Las Vegas. You can listen online at kkvv.com on your smartphone using the TuneIn radio app, or listen anytime at teachingsofenoch.com.